Hello, everybody. Welcome to the I Am IT Geek YouTube channel. My name is Shabazz Dar, and as ever, I am the IT Geek. And I am, again, we've been throughout this series, joined by my good friend Shannon Kuehn. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, how's it going?
Not bad. How are you?
I am doing well. I do like the fact that we're always able to connect, and it's always my morning and your
Yep,
afternoon. The power of the internet, right?
yep. So my day is almost done. Thank God. It's been a long day.
I'm a little
But
jealous because for the folks watching this, we're recording this on Monday, which is nobody's favorite day of the week.
not all. But
And if it is
this
your
is
favorite day of the week, we're worried about you.
Yeah, this has been something that's been motivating me for the rest all day though. That okay, I've got this later on this afternoon. I've got something to look forward to.
Yeah, good, good.
But no, thank you again for giving me your time.
Of
So
course.
just for the people that are watching, this is actually episode 4 within our identity and governance series. Previously we've had we've been more of a kind of podcast sort of. We've been doing a lot of talking and talking about our own experiences. We sort of spoke about demystifying licensing around the Azure ADP2. We then spoke a little bit about what is identity and governance. Kind of gave our take on that. And then we've gone into more detail around some of the PIM elements in the last episode as well. And what we're actually going to do this episode is more demo based. So we've done a bit of Shannon's done some great prep work, and Shannon's going to run through a demo, a bit of an interactive demo. So I'm going to be the guest who's going to be accessing some permissions and so on. So I won't give too much away. Yeah, that's what we've got to look forward to in this episode. So Shannon, do you want to crack on with the demo? Do you want to give a bit of an intro
Sure,
to the demo?
sure. I can kind of give folks an idea here. So when we were trying to figure out the right way to work through a demo, I thought it would be fun to have sort of an interactive demo, especially given the fact that we constantly hear from the PMs that customers are embracing guest governance maybe more quickly than they are with their active user base. So I thought, hey, do you want to be invited into my Azure Active Directory tenant? And I can do some minimal work on the realm of identity governance. And so I've already added Shabazz into my Azure Active Directory environment. I have added him to a specific group called external collaborators, and I have configured an access package. So maybe what we do is we kind of walk through this whole scenario a little bit. So what I had thought through was, maybe Shabazz and I are working on a project. Obviously, he's not employed by the same company, but I can always invite him in. So remember, this is your main blade for your main area for Azure Active Directory. Identity governance shows up down here. And we covered this, I think it was the last episode. If not, it was 2 episodes ago. These are great getting started spots. We won't spend that time going through it today, but wanted to make mention that this area is getting more and more robust, just like all of the areas of Azure within the portal. So I've got an access package, right? So external user access package, applications for guest users. It's in the general catalog. So there is an access link. So that's how every single guest user would go in and access that package. Now, if I click on it, it'll take me into all of the bits I've configured, right? So I created it yesterday. The resource roles are, there's a SharePoint site, right? Then there's a couple of applications in the enterprise apps, right? So ServiceNow, Graph Explorer, Salesforce, Atlassian Cloud. PS, none of that's been configured because there's more configurations you have to do in order to get that package ready to go. This is just more so showing you kind of the starter sides of configuring it. So the policy shows up here. You can edit the policy accordingly. I'll walk through this. You can create the access package in that initial starting point for identity governance, or you can go in here and edit one that already exists. You'll need a name and a description. I specified for users not in your directory, so this will be your guest policy. When I was doing all of my testing, the easiest way to do this is all users, but all users will require an approval. So you'll require, or you could set it so that your requester needs to provide justification. You could always flip that to no. I just leave it as yes. This way it's auditable, trackable, helpful for your auditors when the time comes. You could have up to 3 stages. I just said 1 for this, right? But it's cool that you could have multiple people approve access. The first approver in this scenario, because there's only 1 stage, it's going to be me. and the decision needs to be met within 14 days. You can always change this too. It could be 1 day, right? So I also need to specify the justification that I'm approving something, right? So when I'm enabling new requests, scroll back up here, requester information. This is where you can ask questions. They can provide answers, right? You could have multiple choice. You could have, I chose not to, but there's some flexibility here. You can even specify that this is required in order to gain access. And I'm thinking through our scenario, and I'm thinking it's a little bit too much, but for purposes of knowing that it's there, I wanted to walk through that. You can set the expiration, so the assignments will expire within 365 days for this specific policy. You can change that, right? It could be 90 days, doesn't really matter. There will be access reviews required. You can set this, I just set it as quarterly, but a lot of times we see customers pick biannually or annually, just because you're probably not doing this weekly. You're probably not doing this monthly, right? So quarterly is for that sweet spot. However, there are a bunch of customers out there that we've seen who are doing these access reviews. And remember, that's just going through and making sure that the folks that have access have been sort of pruned and kept neat, because let's say down the road, you and I aren't working together anymore, right? We probably should remove that access, and there probably should be a workflow. So this is kind of showing you how to set up some of that workflow. And I added myself as the reviewer. Now this I haven't spent too much time in, but it's a preview section. So, so if the request is created, you can add a custom extension. I wasn't able to really spend too much time. It's so new. So I was like, well, I won't spend a ton of time there, but this is all in our documentation and you kind of noodle on through it. I'm not going to edit what we've got. I'm going to go down kind of here. I didn't do anything with separation of duties, but you can always add an access package and kind of specify the incompatible access packages and incompatible groups. So that sort of helps out, especially if you've got a number of people you're sort of onboarding in a fast fashion. Nothing's active right now, but you can always add an assignment. You can download, remove, refresh, reprocess. I was playing around with this yesterday, so these were both delivered to my guest account that's been added into this environment. And this is where you sort of conduct the access reviews. So my thinking was maybe what we do here, Shabazz, is I give you this link and you should be able to go into your environment and request access.
Okay, sounds good. So here we are. I've clicked on the link that Shannon sent me. It then asked me to obviously authenticate, and I authenticated with the account, the guest account that Shannon invited, and so that was my Netcompany account. So here you can see I've logged in, and I actually see in the center here the access package, and then you can see the description is applications for guest users. And as we saw when Shannon was going through the creation, the sort of steps, we saw that's what her description was. So this is the correct package. What we're seeing, first of all, before I actually request anything, just want to show on the left-hand side here, we've got a couple of different things we can view. I can actually look at my request history. Now, obviously, this is the first time I'll be requesting, so there's nothing here. But it does show you, if you've requested in historically what you've requested. Look at your approvals as well. So once I make my request, I should be able to go back into this and see that I've got that approval pending, and it's waiting, requested on to Shannon. Finally, this one here is your access review. So again, once I've requested it and I've got my access, I should be able to see something in here, hopefully. And again, there's nothing in there at the moment. But what I just want to quickly do is go back to access packages. And what we'll do is we'll just do the request, and then hopefully Shannon should get a notification. So let's go to request access, justification. Otherwise, the demo will not work. Can't get better justification than that, can we?
Also, notice that you can specify the time period. So you can say, I only need it for a day, right? Like
so I'm going to do that.
You say, I need it today, and then end date would be, maybe, how about tomorrow?
Okay.
There you go. And then hit submit.
There's nothing else yet. Submit that.
And then what happens is I wind up getting an email. It does take a little bit of time.
Okay. Well, what we'll do is when we get that email, we'll come back and we'll show we'll show what that looks like.
Perfect. So it looks like the email arrived. So I need to approve or deny the request by May 9th. I think that'll make the demo work, right? So just to make sure, let's open it in the new tab. Okay, so this is the way it looks like to somebody who's coming in and approving. You click on there. And again, I could see history as well. Like if I thought you had asked for this too much, I could come in and just say deny out the gate. But you are brand new to this project, so I will approve it. Let's see, approved for the project. And so the request details, all right.
Oh, and it gives my business justification as well. That's interesting.
Awesome. Package details. This will have everything, right? So this is that SharePoint site plus these apps.
Yeah.
And then the approval history, which of course I haven't approved this before, so that won't show up. And shoot, all of the moving back and forth removed the reason. So hit approve. Okay, and then you should be able to flip back to your screen and you should be able to see. So if you want to refresh
that. Okay, so I've refreshed the screen and now I can see, now I have an available access package, which is amazing.
Click on the
active one. Sorry, yes.
That's all right. And then so let's see. I believe if you click on it, yes. So click on that external collaboration, for instance. This should take you to the SharePoint site.
And funnily enough, I'm actually getting emails as we speak, just to say that it's been accepted, the approval and stuff like that. So I'm getting notifications about it, which is really good.
Yeah, I got a couple notifications as well. So there's a great email thread that happens as part of this.
This is taking me into my apps now. So there we go. So that's the Atlassian Cloud, the Graph Explorer. These are all the ones that you mentioned.
Yep, and then if you drop the apps down, I think the SharePoint site shows up there too. Oh no, it doesn't. Well, I wonder if because I thought it was gonna.
Well, that's all right. It shows, like I said, it shows the main apps here.
Yeah. So then you could just click on whatever app you needed throughout the time frame of us working together. That's not configured, so I don't expect.
Yeah. So you said that wasn't configured, so that's not.
Yeah.
But
so
essentially, we could click on any of these.
But yeah, so it's just a matter of setting it up in your enterprise app store, and then as a guest, you're able to use Azure Active Directory. So you remember when you're invited in, your home tenant is sort of handling all of your conditional access, your MFA rules, etc. Yeah. Whereas then you're sort of stubbed in my environment. I can permission things against your account. I can give you access to these types of applications. Yeah. So yeah, I hope that showcases the way in which you can handle access packages. If you want, we can flip back to what I see as an administrator. That might be kind of cool.
I mean, what was interesting about that demo was that we kind of, we spoke about PIM, didn't we, about access reviews, guest access, and just-in-time access. With that access review, we've literally done all three, because we've done it's an access review, but you've done that guest access element of it as well, which is part of the PIM. We've also done that just-in-time access because you've limited my time for that one day. So again, it just takes in this access review is taking in all those elements we were talking about in the last episode, which is really cool.
So let's see. So let me show you what it looks like on my end here. So I've got an active assignment, right? You can come down here. It's been delivered. There's the end date. I can remove access. I could reprocess access. Let's say you ran into some problem, right? You could open up a ticket. You could get a hold of me. I could go in and I could reprocess the access. This is in preview. So usually when I see things like that, it's sort of still kind of being built up, right? But that's cool. It helps the workflow a little bit in the event there's some weird issue, like a software hiccup, right?
So
So you could reprocess it again.
is that like resetting your request essentially?
Correct. Yep, correct.
Okay.
So if you somehow lost something or you logged in and there was a blip, right? You could always reprocess. I could reprocess the access for you
Yeah.
and approve it, right? So that's kind of cool.
Similar to the MFA reset, if you screw up your registration when you're doing MFA, you can reset it, can't you? It takes it back to essentially going
Correct.
through that registration process.
Correct. And then here's the requests. So that another spot where you see the request time.
Yeah.
I could always delete this as well. If I said, you know what, he's asked for access to this app way too many times, right? Because he's always a nefarious character. I'm kidding. I could always delete it too, right? That's kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah.
The fact that there's a lot of interesting flexibility here. And we haven't done an access review. So I did yesterday when I was prepping for this. We have not done an access review in this scenario. So why don't I set up an access review?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Cool.
So we will do a new access review. Let's do the application. Let's go in here and let's do Graph Explorer. Okay, so we're going to look at these apps and we're going to set the scope as guest users only. You could always do all users, right? If you've got a lot of folks moving, joining, and maybe even leaving, maybe it makes sense to conduct this on all users, but I'm really focused on my guest users. So you could do a multi-stage review, which I am not going to do. It's interesting. This is in preview. This shows up as required. I was playing around with it last night. You don't have to specify this. So I will select myself. I will specify the recurrence of the review. So just be, well, we could do quarterly. We could end on a specific date. So duration in days, we're going to take a look at this over the course of 3 days. So you can think about it like, yeah, I'm picking one app. Maybe you have 150 people that access that app, right? Maybe you've got 500 people that access that app. You may want to give yourself a number of days to go and fully review everything. So the start date, we'll pick today. We'll end on a specific date. We will end, let's say we give ourselves a full month. So it's the 25th today, so we'll go until May 25th. We'll go to the settings. You can auto-apply the results of the resource. So if the user's access is denied, their access to the resource will be removed after the review is completed. So let's say, for instance, I went through this and I said, we are just going to deny Shabazz because I'm like, look, like he's already done his stuff. We're good. Remember that he has access for the next day. So it won't show up as a denied access review until he tries to go and he re-requests it. Maybe it's Wednesday, right? So today's Monday. If reviewers don't respond, you can remove access, right? Enable reviewer decision helper. So no sign-in activity within the last 30 days. We'll check that. Justification is always going to be required. Email notifications. You can turn some of this off. Like if you don't like the amount of emails that are coming in, this sort of helps. The reminders, this is awesome too. Additional content, I'm not going to fill it in, but you could if it makes sense. And then we'll call this we're going to look at this quarterly, right? So this is sort of one of those things where it's not going to quite match up to everything that you would probably want to conduct an access review on, but you could hit create. And now we've got this. So we can start the access review, right? Which is kind of cool. So we can, you see me as the reviewer. You see the settings here. The scheduled review, right? So start date, end date, review history, and then audit log. So as things start to happen in your environment, these are the two areas that you would be able to go and grab info on. But yeah, I think it's pretty interesting, right? So
100%, yeah.
So all of these areas become really important, I think, when you're trying to figure out, do we have the right access at the right time for the right people?
Hmm.
And historically, identity governance has always been a really tough one to manage just because of the
Yeah.
fact that either the tooling required almost a PhD level of training, or you had a manual workflow, and oftentimes you got so busy so you didn't have time to do that full-blown manual workflow, or you just hope for the best, right? And it's hard because I think anymore most companies are regulated some way. Dependent upon how in depth is another sort of thing to kind of figure out, but I think it's just harder and harder to not have any sort of regulation these days.
And what you're doing is, you're minimizing your your attack footprint as well with stuff like this. By giving access to resources at specific times and dates, and only being able to have that approval process and that control over who, and that visibility over who is accessing when and what. Again, you're making it a safer environment and less risk, really.
Yeah.
And these identity and governance, it comes with, like we said, the P2 Azure AD P2 license for those that have E5. It comes with that as well. So it's people already should potentially have this. The bigger enterprises that have that enterprise level sort of licensing, they'll already have it, but they just don't know about it.
Yeah. Another one it comes with too is the M365 Enterprise SKU as well. So if
Yeah,
you went on the M365 path, which a number of companies did,
yeah,
just to sort of help that roll out with Windows 10 and all of the Windows Store apps and things of that sort, you might already have Azure Active Directory P2 and you might not know about it, right? So the three different license SKUs to pay attention to are the standalone license, the EMS E5,
yeah,
or the M365 Enterprise license SKU.
yeah. Perfect. Bit more demystifying the licenses there.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I think it's interesting too. So on my team, we did a series of streams last week in preparation for the rest of the activities for the month.
mhm.
And we had a licensing specialist from Australia show up, and he runs m365maps.com. He said the complexity and perceived complexity is born out of flexibility. So
Yeah.
oftentimes it's a matter of just having a good conversation with the customers. And, and every customer is different, right? So they don't always have all the right time to give. But it's one of those things where, there's a lot of flexibility baked in, a lot of a la carte options, just a
Mhm.
matter of making sure you know what you've got and how to turn things on when the time comes.
And that is the most difficult part, knowing what you've got. Which again, I think conversations I'm having, more and more customers are starting to understand what they have now and what each feature in their license does, but it's still a big area which I think we can improve on. So no, thank you again. That was really good demo. So those have been two really good demos so far. We've had a look at access packages, and then we've had a look at access reviews as well. I think the third thing we want to go through is from the PIM area anyway, is a sort of it's like just in time access, I think.
Yes.
So we've got another little demo set up for that as well.
Yes, correct. So in this scenario, I thought to myself, what's the most common thing that somebody's trying to do that might be a more sensitive task, right? So maybe you give somebody contributor rights to a subscription. They can do most things, but can they create a service principal? The answer is no.
Hmm.
Can they do things in Key Vault? The answer is no, right? So there's a specific role that I have assigned Shabazz to, and he's going to try and create a service principal, and it should fail. And once it fails, he'll go in and he will activate a role, and they should be able to create the service principal. So let's try
So
that out. So
that's
if
the
you
command
yeah, so if you take a look at the top right, he's in my directory, even though he's got his netcompany.com email.
there. That's so we're in the correct tenant, which is good.
Yep.
And that's the command. So if I press enter,
Yep.
so there's the error
In
that you said we were going to get.
privileges to complete the operation. So you don't want your consultants just willy-nilly going and creating a bunch of service principals, because then all of a sudden you've got service principal sprawl. So what I have done is I have given him the ability to activate a role. So let's go into Privileged Identity Management. And let's go down to My Roles. Now he's got Application Administrator. And so the end time is tomorrow, right? Because he said he only needed it for a short period of time. Okay, cool. I'll give you access to do it for a day. And then he'll activate it. Now, let's say he runs into some weird time constraints and needs to extend it. He can extend it as well.
Ah, yeah, there's the extend option there.
Correct. Now, I have to approve it, but that's sort of the nature of the beast. You do need a reason. You could just say to work on our project. Doesn't really matter. Oh, yeah, for the demo. So the demo works.
That's my go-to reason for all of this.
And then I click activate, and it should activate.
So this is that stage process.
Yeah.
How exciting. There we go.
So now it is done, and it'll refresh. And if you run that same service principal command using the AZCLI, it should now work because it's active. In fact, let's go into Privileged Identity Management real quick, and let's just showcase that it's an active role now. Click on Active Assignments at the top.
Click. Oh, sorry, yeah, there we go.
Boom.
There we go.
It's active.
Yeah.
And the end time is going to be later today.
Yeah, so I think it was 1 hour. So let's go back into Bash, Cloud Shell, and let's paste that command back in. So that was the same command that we ran before.
Yep.
And just to prove we are still in the Shannon tenant.
So, but yes, now he's able to create a service principal. How cool is that? He wasn't able to do it. So he was a contributor in my subscription. So he can do most things. But when it comes to highly privileged roles, right, he has to activate things. And the application administrator role gives you full capacity to create service principals. And the reason being, you don't want to have the service principals sprawl, because it's a pretty common thing inside of environments, right? You work with a bunch of different people. They deploy a thing that needs a service principal. You get everything situated and connected. Well, let's say you do a rotation of your service principal passwords. You might have a broken application at some point, right? Also, too, you just don't want somebody to go in and create a bunch of service principals as well, because then it's management overhead. They go in and prune and clean. This helps you maintain your security posture, allows that just-in-time access, and now Shabazz can go and build out what he needs to with that service principal. And contributor rights, you can do just about anything in the environment, right? Like you can go in and you can, build VMs and deploy web apps and things of that sort, right? So he's not necessarily impacted on what he's trying to do for me as part of this project, but he's not able to go and create service principals until he activates the role inside of Privileged Identity Management, which is kind of cool.
Well, that was very, very cool. So we've covered a lot in this very demo heavy. Like I said, we did a lot of talking. We discussed a lot of different things, which was important that we did discuss those in the previous episodes. And so I thought it would be a good way to finish off this this series with some demos. So I'm hoping our viewers have got the most out of that.
That's what I'm hoping as well. And what we should do too is we should link to some of the tutorials that way, because there's more things that the links tend to sort of branch off into.
Yeah.
But I think, having that as a good starter point for each one of those areas. So, access packages, access reviews, and privileged identity management, that should help folks out with configuring this in their environment.
Yeah, we'll put all the links in the description. So that brings us to an end of this is the final episode in this series, the Identity and Governance series. Has been a bit of a shorter series, but again, I think we've got through a lot of really good content and information.
We did.
And it has been very, very fun to do this with you again, Shannon, so thank you very much.
Of course, we'll have to look for another opportunity to do it in the future, for sure.
We will, 100%. I'm sure there'll be plenty of cloud topics out there we can work on.
Of course.
So again, massive thanks to Shannon. Please do, drop us a like, subscribe to my channel, and give Shannon a follow as well on Twitter if you're not already. And keep an eye out. Again, there's loads more content on this whole subject in the... Is the swarm the right phrase? Is that...
So yes, we have what are called swarms. That's what we tend to refer to them as, right? But you could think of them like a sprint. It's a series of concentrated activities that we're focused on for the month of April and probably even early May. We're finding that we're sort of moving into that month as well in terms of activities. We call it a swarm though, because we're bringing a lot of different teams together, both internally at Microsoft, and we're leaning on community members like yourself to help us
Yeah.
spread that message. Because I think that's the hardest thing, right? Customers will buy a specific license SKU for one thing. They don't realize all of the extra interesting things they wind up getting. And so the idea here is to hopefully bring about awareness.
Yeah, excellent. And again, I will put the link to the 425 show in the description as well. If you haven't seen that, do check it out.
Very cool.
But yeah, thank you very much to all our viewers. Thank you for the support you've given us. Do continue to keep an eye out on my channel. Plenty more content coming. But yeah, for now, it's thank you very much, Shannon. It's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
And thank you to all our viewers. But until next time, thank you. Goodbye.
Bye bye.